Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Game of Thrones Season 7 predictions for Tyrion. And this video is a part of a series of videos where I give my predictions on what I think will happen in Season 7 of Game of Thrones, focusing on a different character every week. This video is for my predictions for Tyrion Lannister. So I have to start off by giving a very serious spoiler warning, not only for Game of Thrones up to the end of Season 6, but also for production leaks, which include leaked photos and casting news, as well as a very detailed plot leak. So if you don't want to know anything about what's been confirmed for Season 7 of Game of Thrones, then this video will not be for you. So it's funny, for a while Tyrion was pretty much the star of the show. In recent years he's been delegated more of a supporting role as Daenerys' advisor. I think now that he has officially become the Queen's hand, we may see a bit more of him, and I think the show will take strides to have a lot of dialogue scenes with him interacting with the various people around him. I think he now has a good working relationship with Grey Worm and Missandei, but we probably won't get as many scenes with them as we did last season. This year Tyrion's going to have a lot more familiar faces to interact with. So as I outlined in my Daenerys video in episode 1, they will arrive at Dragonstone and claim that as their base, and Tyrion along with Varys will strategize with Daenerys about how best to take Westeros. And as I mentioned in that video, Tyrion will advise making an alliance with the North because with it comes alliances with the Vale and the Riverlands, plus Tyrion will be quite impressed upon hearing the news that Jon Snow has been declared King of the North, as they left on good terms, so he will suggest to Daenerys that he would make a reasonable ally and would highly suggest she start from there. So ravens will be sent to Winterfell, which he will respond to by coming down to Dragonstone to meet with them. So Tyrion will be there on the beach to receive Jon Snow, who will arrive with Davos, and there have been many photos that confirm this. And Tyrion will receive him warmly, and the two of them will briefly reminisce. And when he does meet with Daenerys, the two of them will be unsure of each other, but Tyrion will try to smooth things over between them. And when Jon brings up the White Walker threat, Tyrion will give validity to these claims, because although in Season 1, when he was at the Wall, he was very dismissive and skeptical about such claims at first, but he grew to trust the men there, in particular Lord Commander Mormont, who warned him of this threat. And when Tyrion was serving as Joffrey's hand in Season 2, when they received a letter from Mormont warning about the White Walker threat, he supported it and thought it should be taken seriously, whereas Cersei just dismissed it out of hand. And seeing dragons in real life and in his company has got to get him to open his mind a bit when it comes to the world of magic. So I believe he will urge Daenerys to take him seriously. And as I said, I think we'll get a few scenes of Tyrion interacting with various people, and I most definitely think we'll get one with him and Davos, as these two were on opposite sides during the Battle of Blackwater. In fact, one way to look at it would be Tyrion was directly responsible for the death of his son, because he was killed by the wildfire, which was Tyrion's idea. And I'm sure this will be brought up. However, where Tyrion once supported the Lannisters, he now supports Daenerys, and where Davos once supported Stannis, he now supports Jon Snow. So I don't find Davos to be the type to hold a grudge. So I think they'll just acknowledge this, but they won't hold any animosity towards each other. More of marvel at how times have changed. So eventually Jon will agree to an alliance with Daenerys and will agree to bend the knee to her as Queen of Westeros and remain Warden of the North if she agrees to aid them in their fight against the White Walkers. Daenerys will refuse to abandon her fight against the Lannisters, and Tyrion will offer an alternative that they tried to convince them that the White Walkers are the greater threat by bringing back proof of the White Walker threat. Jon Snow will be on board with this, and Tyrion will agree. However, in the meantime, Daenerys will still be looking to form allegiances with other kingdoms of Westeros, as her Dornish, Tyrell, and Greyjoy allies would have all suffered stunning defeats at the hand of Cersei and her new allies. And so she'll seek the other kingdoms, and that's when Davos will suggest a way she might gain the support of the Stormlands, as he knows of an heir to Robert Baratheon still living, a bastard which could be legitimized and made Lord Lord of the Stormlands, whom the other Stormlanders would follow because of his heritage. Not to mention the symbolism of having the son of the man who deposed her father on her side. So Davos will suggest that they seek out Gendry and make him Lord of the Stormlands. So Varys will get some info from his little birds or whatever spy network he currently has and find out that he is working as a blacksmith in King's Landing under an assumed name. So then a mission will be suggested to go to King's Landing to approach him, to which Davos will volunteer because he knows him, and Tyrion will also volunteer because he knows King's Landing. So the two of them will set out to retrieve Gendry, and they'll find that he has become his own master blacksmith working in King's Landing and doing quite well for himself. In fact, since he is now well aware of his heritage, he has crafted a warhammer for himself, similar to the one his father used, that bears the Baratheon sigil. He would have kept this warhammer secret as not to draw attention to his heritage, but would have crafted it all the same. And in fact, I believe Tyrion will use that to convince him that his heritage is important to him and that now is the time to seize it and become more than a blacksmith. So they will convince him to depart with them and prepare to sneak off by boat to return to Dragonstone. However, as they attempt to leave, Tyrion will be spotted and recognized by some gold cloaks, and while Davos and Tyrion try unsuccessfully to talk their way out of it, Gendry will sneak up on the gold cloaks with his warhammer and bash them in, and then they'll make their escape. So a lot of this is speculation on my part, but there has been confirmed by production photos the scene where Tyrion, Davos, and Gendry are on the beach of King's Landing, and Tyrion is spotted by gold cloaks, and Gendry bashes them in with his warhammer. So yes, Gendry's warhammer that bears the Baratheon sigil has been confirmed by leaked photos. So once back at Dragonstone, they would have gotten word from the Lords of the Stormlands, who were eager to accept Gendry as their lord after having no other true heir, and thus will support Daenerys in her efforts. However, Gendry himself will refuse to go back down to the Stormlands once he hears about Jon Snow's plan to retrieve proof of the White Walker invasion, so he will demand to be part of that mission. And indeed, there will be a barrage. There was a barrage of production leaks, photos that confirm that Gendry will be heading north on this mission, and they'll be leaving in the boat with Jon Snow and Jorah Mormont, who I feel will serve as Daenerys' emissary on this mission. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, because before this happens, Daenerys would have been planning her huge ambush of the Lannister forces that seized Highgarden on their way back to King's Landing. And her top allies, the Unsullied Dothraki, will go with her, as will Tyrion. So Tyrion will be the one of those military advisors hanging back rather than doing any fighting himself. So unfortunately, no more heroic speeches like the one we got in Blackwater. But he will mainly be there to deal with Jaime and be very nervous about seeing him again, but unfortunately he won't get the chance, as although the Lannister forces will suffer a stunning defeat, Jaime would have managed to escape with his life. Daenerys will take other important figures captive, however, including Randall Tarley, the man who betrayed the Tyrells to the Lannisters, whom they installed as Lord of the Reach. Tyrion will suggest that he will make a valuable hostage. However, when Randall refuses to bend the knee to Daenerys, she will then decide to have her dragons burn him alive, a move Tyrion will very much be against and will urgently urge her not to do it, and Daenerys will say something like, "I value your advice, but I cannot let this stand," and will have her dragons roast him alive. Daenerys will then send the Unsullied, led by Grey Worm, to follow Jaime back to Castle Rock and lay siege to the castle. And Tyrion will want to be among those forces because he knows Castle Rock and Jaime, but Daenerys will refuse him, saying he's more valuable by her side and she needs him to secure the other alliances, which he does aid in securing the alliances of the Riverlands, whom, thanks to Arya, is once again lorded by Edmure Tully. And once they return to Dragonstone, Jon Snow will counsel that since since the Tarleys are now the new lords of the Reach and Randall is dead, the lordship should fall to Samwell Tarly, and thus with the alliance of what remains of Dorne and the Reach and the Stormlands and the Riverlands, Daenerys' forces will easily sweep across Westeros and defeat the Lannister forces, who will be hiding out in a few strongholds, one of them being the Red Keep. So Tyrion will join Daenerys in King's Landing as she takes the city, making the Dragon Pits her base of operations, while Cersei stubbornly refuses to give up the Red Keep. Tyrion will then suggest that Daenerys win the devotion of the small folk of King's Landing by ensuring they are fed and well looked after, which she'll do, and it will be incredibly successful. Cersei will then launch a guerrilla war against Daenerys using Qyburn's little birds, wildfire, and the mountain, which Tyrion will attempt to advise to fight against, but for the most part they will remain at a standstill. That is until Jon Snow returns from his journey with a white as proof of the White Walker threat, and so a huge parlay will take place in the Dragon Pits, which will involve at least 15-18 main characters, including Jon Snow, Daenerys, Varys, Tyrion, Cersei the Mountain, Jaime the Hound, Brienne, and several others. There, Cersei will refuse to acknowledge Tyrion's existence and won't even look in his direction, but they will come to an agreement that was in fact Tyrion's idea, that Daenerys will let Cersei keep the Westerlands as a Lord of Castle Rock and will allow her to openly marry her own brother, which under Daenerys' rule won't be outlawed. Tyrion would have expected to receive an amount of gratitude from Jaime and Cersei, but will receive none. But ultimately Cersei will agree to these terms, but with some ulterior motives that I talked about in some other videos. And so they will agree the main fight is up north against the White Walkers, and that is how Tyrion's Season 7 storyline will end. So yeah, that's all I have for my predictions on Tyrion. Some of them are supported by the plot leaks, while others, like the whole thing about Gendry being Lord of the Stormlands, are just wild-ass guesses on my part that are most likely to be proven wrong come July. But as always, I only hope to get at least 40% of these predictions correct, and if I do, I will consider it a resounding success. So that's it for my Game of Thrones Season 7 predictions for Tyrion, and I have an announcement to make, or rather to echo, that at the end of the month I will be doing a video with Apkin Tomko over on his channel where we count down the top 10 episodes of Game of Thrones as decided by our viewers. So rather than just him and me rattling off our own personal top 10s, we're accepting submissions from you, the viewer. So we'll take everyone's top 10 and assign points for each episode. Like number 1 picks will get 10 points, number 2 picks will get 9 points, number 3 picks will get 8 points, and so on and so forth, down to your number 10 getting 1 point. So we'll tally the results and present them in a discussion video that's tentatively scheduled for February 25th. So if you're watching this video after that date, then well, you've missed it and you can watch our live discussion in the archives. But if you're watching this video in February 2017, please submit your top 10 in the comment section below. However, don't be alarmed when it doesn't appear or when you can't see anyone else's top 10, because I will be deleting and saving those comments, so it's more of a surprise of what other episodes other people picked, but they will all be recorded. So please submit your top 10 favorite episodes of Game of Thrones below, and check out our live discussion on February 25th over on Apkin Tomko's channel, where we count down the top 10 best episodes of Game of Thrones as voted by you. Also, be sure to check out my channel for many more Game of Thrones videos, as well as more videos on other shows like Star Trek, Vikings, Black Sails, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.